Hey ladies, how you doing? It's good to see you again. Well, in theory, it's good to see you again. I hope you're having a great start to your week. I'm doing pretty good. I'm actually feeling really excited because I'm doing a side project that is in honor of my father who passed away last April. It's going to be bigger than that, but for the time being, it's honoring him. And so I've gotten the opportunity to talk to other people about his life, and it's just been so rewarding and so amazing to relive some of these memories and also learn lots of new things about him. So that's what I've been up to this week, and I can't wait to eventually share it, the full project with you all. But for now, that's a little sneak peek. So we're going to continue in with our series, Mom 101. I've decided to call it that. And last week we talked a lot about kind of the very beginning phase of understanding what your fertility looks like through the lens of the menstrual cycle and all of the very exciting things that come along with menstruation and the other phases. So if you're just joining us in this episode, I encourage you to go back if that's something that you're not 100% familiar with. So things like ovulation and different phases of the menstrual cycle. That's everything that we talked about last week, along with some things to be on the lookout for, things that may be irregular or not typical that may influence your ability to get pregnant, or at the very least, maybe the quickness in which you might get pregnant because of some of those things. So definitely check back with that episode. And for this one, we're going to be talking about the actual act of trying to conceive. Now, when I say act, I'm not talking about that act, but just the process of, what it entails to start trying to conceive. And we're also going to talk about infertility just a little bit because I recently got some information from a very credible source about IVF and kind of that whole world. And I just couldn't help but share it with you all. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. All right, so we are at the point where I'm assuming you've done all of the prerequisite things, really deep diving into your partner's life and your own life and really figuring out if this is something that you want to do. And then you've looked at your own menstrual cycle to determine kind of what your fertility looks like. And something that I wanted to address right away before we just jump into the trying to conceive is kind of your partner's health too. Like the sperm is a big part of making a baby, right? And I think when we talk about, trying to conceive, a lot of the work is done by women. And I think it's a great thing because they're going to be the house for this baby for, 10 months and then possibly feed that baby with her own body and all those things. So I totally understand. And I think it's very important and great that women spend so much time in the pre-planning phase. But I think as a society, we don't do enough with the men. And so I just wanted to touch on it because I am seeing more and more emphasis on that. And I think it has to do with the rising infertility rates across the world. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later, but I think we're spending more time looking at men because of that. And I think that's great. And so I just wanted to kind of touch on some of the things that make it a little bit more difficult, I think, at least in my opinion, for getting pregnant, as soon as possible when it comes to men. And, we got to focus on sperm quality, obviously, because like I said, it's a big part. And I did a little bit of research, and it actually turns out that men have a lot of sperm that they tend to release. Like a healthy young man releases a lot of sperm in one, I guess, outing. And that's great. And I think it needs to be that much because sperm really encounter a lot of barriers when it when they enter the vagina and start their journey to the egg. If you've never seen a video, there's a bunch of them on the internet floating around, and it's actually quite miraculous that a single sperm actually does meet the egg, because the female body is actively trying to murder sperm along the way. Like, the quality of the liquid inside the vagina is not conducive to sperm living in it. I mean, it gets a little bit better during ovulation, but for the most part, like, they die on site, like when they get in there. And then the few that actually kind of like make it through the vagina and get into the fallopian tubes and all of that, there's still many barriers that they have to face until they actually reach the egg. And then they have to compete to, barrel into the egg before the other sperm, makes it there first, because it only needs one. And as soon as one sperm makes it through the hard shell of the egg and like enters, the rest are like blocked immediately. So they fail. It's quite the journey. And so the sperm quality is really important, because if you have, some sort of malformation, that sperm is not going to swim correctly. It's going to be doing funky things. Maybe it'll be spinning in circles. And like, I've seen videos of, sperm in petri dishes literally spinning in circles. Like, it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So this is factual, and it happens. I've seen some infographics that show kind of where sperm can break down, and I think that would be something that we could talk about. So I'm going to share it to my Instagram by the time this podcast uploads, so that you can go look at it. So that will be a reference. It should be up while you're listening to this. But I found a really cool infographic, and you'll see the page that posted it. I can't think of it right now. It broke the sort of malformations or the atypicalities by parts of the sperm. So there could be issues with the sperm head, like maybe there's two sperm heads, maybe it's just a weird shaped. And then there could be something wrong with the midsection. So like maybe I think that's talking about like the part that joins the head to the tail. And there could be different rings there, like different shapes there. And then the tail itself could be too small or too big, or, it's doing the weird spirally thing. So it's not swimming effectively. And so that would be like motility, I think. So it would have poor motility because of the tail. And then just genetically, maybe that sperm, like the head part, doesn't have any maybe it doesn't have the right DNA or the right genetic material, or maybe there's none at all. Maybe it's like a chromosomal. It doesn't have any genetic material. So even if it reached the egg, it would not fertilize it correctly, because it doesn't have what the egg needs to make a healthy baby. Does that make sense? So there are many things that could go wrong with the sperm itself. And then along with that, maybe the man is having trouble releasing that sperm. So maybe he does his job and, releases the sperm, but there is not enough of it, or maybe the liquid that it's in is not conducive to like helping it do its job. So there's various kind of breakdowns that can happen. And I'm not a specialist or, like an expert in this area. So definitely do your own research and look into it further. But I just wanted to highlight some of the things that can impact the male side of things, because women do take a lot of responsibility and ownership when it comes to trying to make a baby and like putting blame on themselves. And not that anyone is to blame, but there's a lot of responsibility on the woman and the future mother. And, there are parts that men play in it. So I've talked about kind of the sperm and, maybe parts of the activity that can be thwarted by the male. But what are some of the things that are, I guess, applicable, or things that you can actually wrap your head around that could cause some of these things to happen, right? Like that's a good question. And definitely the health of the man is something to consider. So like, what is he eating on a daily basis? Is he eating overly processed foods? Is he eating healthy foods? Does he have a great diet? Those are things to consider. along with his overall activity. Is he super active? Does he do things that maybe are smashing his parts a lot? Like maybe if he like rides horses or something, I don't know. Just thinking like, what are some of those things? Maybe if he plays football, for example, things that are going to be like we have to keep in mind. I don't want to get too graphic, but the sperm are stored in his balls, right? So they are like loose and flapping around, and men are very protective over their jewels for a reason. I think biologically they're designed to protect them because they know this is where their livelihood is. This is how they reproduce and replicate themselves. And, so anything that puts that in danger is going to be a concern. So that's something to think about. And then conversely, if the male is very unactive and is sitting all the time, well, in that case, they're still kind of smushing their friends, right? Think about it. If they're sitting all day long at their desk or something, that's not good either. So there should be some movement there, but maybe not, catastrophic movements. Let's see. If the man has trouble, like kind of getting it up, if you know what I mean. So if there's like erectile dysfunction, that's probably indication that maybe overall fertility is impacted. Just from like common sense, if he has trouble staying erect, then maybe there's no chance of completion like during sexual activity, right? So like if he can't stay hard, then he can't complete the process. I'm trying so hard not to get like ridiculous here, but you guys know what I mean, right? Like you get it. That's going to be a major barrier to getting pregnant if he can't complete the task, right? Drugs and alcohol. So pretty much any of these toxins, it doesn't necessarily have to be drugs or alcohol, but any sort of toxin that you know about that probably isn't good for you is not good for your body in general, but it's definitely not good for your reproductive organs and things like that. So trying to cut back on those things is going to be incredibly helpful in trying to boost the man's chances of giving good quality sperm and therefore helping you get pregnant as soon as possible. All right, that's enough on the men. So let's move on to the good part. Can we skip to the good part? Have you heard that before? I feel like most women have, like that reel or whatever. I don't even know what it's called. Am I 70? I think I am. I'm really distracted today. Can you guys tell? But okay. Can we skip to the good part? Yes. The good part is the act of trying. And this is fun. I'm sure you've been practicing for a long time, like for this moment, if you're a fully grown adult woman in a committed relationship. So you already know what you have to do, right? And there's all these like people out there that tell you try this, like different positions and things. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think the way that God designed the body is that the sperm are going to seek the egg no matter what position you put your body in or, what position you stay in. I mean, maybe there's some truth to that, but I just don't feel like it is. But again, I'm not an expert, so you can always do your own research. And if you feel like you want to do a specific position, then you could try it. But I don't think that's the case. I think the more important part is just having a good time. I think when there's stress in your body, just in normal life, it's no good for you. I've talked about this in previous episodes. Stress is not good for anyone at any time. I mean, maybe it's good in short bursts, like the fight or flight kind of reflexes. If there's something that's going on, the stress from that event would then help you, escape or protect yourself. But like long-term stress or unnecessary stress is just unnecessary. It's not good for your body and it will cause issues. So when it comes to trying, you want to be stress-free as much as possible and just enjoy the process. You already if you've done what I've asked you to do, then you already kind of know when your best chances of getting pregnant are. So like if you're tracking your cycle and everything like that, my recommendation would be try to start a little bit before your fertile window opens. And that's because sperm can live for, I think, up to a week. Don't quote me on it. Again, always do your own research, but I think they can live for several days, if not a week, inside of a woman's body. And so if you start the trying before, there's a chance that the spermies would have made their way through the vagina, through the cervix, up the fallopian tubes, and are kind of like sitting and waiting for the egg to be released by the time you actually release an egg during ovulation. So I definitely recommend starting before, but definitely keep trying throughout the fertile window, because then you know for a fact that your egg is imminent, like it's close. And then you could even try after you have that positive sign that you have ovulated, because the egg can live for 24 to 48 hours, depending on which information you're looking at. So that's pretty much it for that. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, I would hope. But something that I do want to address when it comes to this part is that you really want to make sure that you're mentally and spiritually open to the idea. I've heard several stories, and it could sound woo woo or whatever, like I'm not trying to, but this has been true for me, and it has been true for other women, that sometimes a baby is knocking. Sometimes your little spirit baby is right there and just waiting for you guys to do the act to allow them in. And sometimes there's no baby in sight, and maybe you are actually terrified to actually be a mother, or maybe your husband is terrified to actually be a father, but you guys like the idea of it. Maybe the other partner is more excited than the other. Maybe there's like something looming, like, uncertainty with jobs, or, location or home. All of those things can, in my opinion, block the baby from entering, even if you're doing everything right. I'll never forget, and this is ridiculous, I don't even use like celebrities often, but you all know who Beyonce is if you like don't live under a rock, right? And you know who Jay-Z is, who is her husband. Well, I'll never forget, there was a song that they did together. I think it was in the 444 album. Is that right? I don't know. Why am I even talking about these people? But okay, I'm already here. There's a song where Jay-Z said, kept losing them babies because their futures were uncertain. And it stuck with me because I remember watching one of Beyonce's documentaries like before this song came out, and she had opened up about losing at least one baby before she got pregnant with Blue. And it was like devastating to me to watch, just as a woman. I mean, nothing to do with Beyonce as a celebrity. It was just like devastating to watch a woman like crying about not hearing a heartbeat. Like, oh my God, it's awful. And so she talked about like at least losing one baby before Blue. And she did kind of hint at the fact that they were not in the best place with their relationship. And then years later, when he wrote this song, it became obvious that she actually lost several babies. And they also talked about their relationship issues where he was very unfaithful to her, and their relationship was kind of rocky and uncertain. Like they weren't sure if they were going to continue in their marriage. So that definitely stuck with me. And this was before I even had any of my babies. And then when I got pregnant the first time with our first child, there was a lot of uncertainty for me. Like I was definitely embarrassed. Like I didn't want to be pregnant before we were married. And, I had a lot of guilt about that. And I'm not saying that women or, men cause miscarriages. Like, please, please, please don't take that away. Sometimes it just happens. That's just the way God designs it. And we just kind of like have to roll with it. But I do believe that there can be a spiritual component to this. I think birth is sacred. I think motherhood is sacred. I think life in general is sacred. And because I believe and think that, I believe that when it comes to conception, there is a sacred spiritual component. Okay, that's a soapbox, but it's something that I did want to bring up because I've heard it happen in several cases. And like all of the women that I'm around and who are mothers, some of them were having trouble getting pregnant, some of them lost babies, and a lot in a common theme was this kind of uncertainty or like not sure. So just also go into it being sure that this is what you want if you have the opportunity to, like actively try to get pregnant. I know sometimes people just get pregnant, right? Surprise babies happens. But if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to assume that you're consciously trying to, conceive this baby. Okay. Does that make sense? I hope so. Let's move on. Okay, so we talked about kind of the sperm quality, male health, all of that. I briefly talked about the act of trying. We don't need to spend time on that. And now I just wanted to go over some of the norms. And I'm quoting this because this is really interesting. Like when we talk to fertility specialists, doctors, and things like that, often they'll say that a normal, healthy young couple could take 6 months to a year to get pregnant. And so that's kind of the recommendation. So if you're a normal, young, healthy couple, if it's taking you longer than a few months to get pregnant, then we'll just say it's normal. With that being said, I do feel like there are ways to increase your chances because the typical normal, young, healthy couple probably is shooting in the dark, if that makes sense. Maybe the woman isn't fully sure about her menstrual cycle. Maybe she doesn't know when she ovulates. Maybe she doesn't know what ovulation is. Maybe she just knows that sex makes a baby, right? So this data could be a little skewed because a lot of people are operating from ignorance, not in a bad way, but just like we know that sex makes a baby. And so we have sex and then we try to make a baby, right? You, on the other hand, are someone who knows a little bit more. And I do find that people who are more knowledgeable about fertility and all of this stuff tend to have a easier time getting pregnant. This is just in my experience. And again, these are people who are typically healthy, who don't do drugs, who are active, who have an awareness of their fertility, both male and female. And so I feel like the chances with all of these variables greatly reduces the time that it would take to get pregnant. Again, this is just my personal experience. I know there's plenty of people out there who have all of the boxes checked, who know exactly when they ovulate and it still doesn't happen and my heart goes out. But generally, this is not the case. And I guess because I brought that up, this is touching on infertility. And I said I would talk about it. So let's go there next. There is a increase in infertility that's happening around the world. And I have many theories on that. I think it has a lot to do with environmental factors. I think the food that we eat and the medicines we take and the different products that we allow on our bodies and into our systems impact fertility. And that's for male and female people. But I don't want to spend time on like the why there. I do want to focus on the things that people do when they are having trouble. So when they determine that, you know what, maybe we are struggling with infertility, the things that they do in order to kind of fix that. And most of the time, people are going to a reproductive kind of specialist, and it might be an IVF doctor. So something that I recently came across was a podcast. I think it's Lila Rose. Yeah, it was the Lila Rose podcast. And she had someone named Dr. Lauren Rubel. She is a former IVF doctor and she currently still works as a reproductive care physician. She had this doctor on her podcast and my mind was blown. Like the stuff that she was saying, she said 7% of embryos actually result in a live baby. And this is best practice. Like specifically in America, because there's different rules for IVF around the world. So, she is a American physician. She said that 7% of embryos actually make it to a live birth. That means that 93% don't, and it could be through a loss, or it could be through the fact that they just never get implanted, or they're just like sitting somewhere frozen in a state of, I guess, like limbo, waiting for their parents to decide what to do with them. And sometimes they just get flat out destroyed. And that, first of all, as a Christian, and I'm not expecting all of you to be Christians on this podcast, but just me as a Christian, I'm like flabbergasted by that. That it just would never be okay for me for that to happen. But just separately from the spiritual side of it, the fact that we kind of always tell couples that IVF is available to them if they're dealing with infertility. Like, I just think about it like this, right? If we think about like surgeries and things like that, if you have a broken bone, a doctor could fix it and like, externally and then put it in a cast. And the bone may heal or it may not, right? But sometimes that's not enough. And so the doctor's like, you know what? We need to do a reconstructive surgery. We need to put screws. We need to put some sort of hardware. We need to fix it from the inside. And like, we pretty much know or believe that that's going to be a much better fix. So we start off with maybe external, trying to fix it from the outside. And then if that doesn't work, maybe we have to go internal and do a more extreme procedure. But when we do that procedure, it's almost because we know there's a guarantee that the outcome is going to be better. And the fact that the fact that IVF has what essentially is a 7% success rate, it is alarming. And I don't think that it should be the end all be all. And it shouldn't be something that we immediately jump to when people are dealing with infertility. And she spent a lot of time talking about this in a way smarter way than what I just said. So instead of me kind of beating that horse and stumbling through, I highly recommend you find that podcast episode because she explained so much about the world of infertility. And she also gave a lot of insight into some other things that you can try if you're dealing with fertility issues and trying to get pregnant. So I definitely recommend that. Last week, I also recommended someone named the Fertility Homeopath, and she has a lot of resources about ways that you can improve your fertility and improve your chances of getting pregnant in a more natural way. And both of those people talk about similar things. So it leads me to believe that that's probably the better route to go. I feel like a lot of women have many underlying conditions that can manifest in difficulties getting pregnant. We don't often spend time on kind of how different parts of our systems interact with each other. So something that a lot of women are dealing with right now is trouble with their thyroid, and it could be hyperthyroid, hypothyroid, and research is coming out suggesting that birth control can impact that. And so if you're someone who's like coming off birth control and you're having trouble getting pregnant, something that you can look into is, thyroid function and things like that. And often when they fix those issues, like if you have hypothyroidism and getting on the right medication for that, you'll find that you can get pregnant fairly quickly. But if we don't look at the whole person and the whole system, and we look at things in isolation, we might be missing something that is a pretty easy fix and going to something as extreme as IVF. So yeah, girls. Okay. How are you feeling about this? I hope that it is helpful. It was definitely eye-opening to me when I started to learn all of this, and I know that it can be overwhelming to start. What I want to leave you with in this episode, because it really is just about trying to conceive, is what I said a little while ago, which is really try to enjoy it. Like, just have fun. You love this person. You want to create a baby with this person. And so you want to set yourself up for success the best way you can. But at the end of the day, we really don't have a lot of control over it. I believe that it really is in God's timing and what God wants. If you are not like a Christian, maybe you don't believe that, but regardless, you don't have a lot of control over it. Whatever you believe, there's not a whole lot of control over it. So the best thing you can do is just enjoy making love to your partner, right? So next week, we're going to be focusing on how you know you're pregnant. So we're going to assume that eventually you're going to conceive and you're going to get a positive pregnancy test. And we're going to kind of talk about some of the symptoms that might come up before that positive, and then some of the symptoms that will continue to kind of manifest as your pregnancy continues and as the baby starts to fully dig in there and make itself known to us. So yeah, definitely be on the lookout for that next week. I'm excited about this one because we're getting into actual pregnancy, which is my absolute favorite thing to talk about. And definitely let me know what you girls are thinking. Give me some feedback because it definitely helps. And you already know how to do that. If you've listened to previous episodes, you can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, YouTube, obviously Spotify. Leave some feedback. It definitely helps. I'll see you girls in the next episode. Take care of yourselves.